All right. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited about today's panel on what the MSP of the future looks like and what it might look like, 3 years from now. Uh, and to be able to sit here with some really amazing panelists really gets me pumped. So as I consider the current state of MSPs and where we're at today and the rapid pace of evolution that we're seeing right now, I really can't help but think about how transformational of a moment in time this is and how exciting it is. And so, what I really love about the MSP space specifically is that I really look at MSPs as sort of being like the backbone of their customers' businesses and keeping them up and running across a broad spectrum of things. And I also really like actually that the stakes feel high a lot of the time. MSPs have to be really good at a lot of things, and their customers have very clear expectations, which is their experience needs to be effortless. So it feels like a really appropriate time to really look at, what MSPs of the future are going to look like with the explosion of AI and automation and all these other capabilities that we're hearing more and more about, and all the different acronyms that we throw around. And so, with that being said, my name is David Schwartz. I'm going to be the moderator today. I'm the general manager here at PIA. And, I'll admit that the less I talk with how great today's panelists are, the better off we all are and the more value our attendees will get out of this. So with that said, I'm going to introduce everybody and we'll kind of get into this and really have a great dialogue around what the MSP of the future looks like. But starting with our speakers, our first one is Aron Hardy. He and has tremendous insights, comes out of the MSP world specifically as well, and will be a great value to add here today. Additionally, we have Ryan Barton, who's the Chief Innovation Officer at New Charter, which is a rapidly growing, really exciting MSP, nationwide MSP in the US. And then we have Cory Ruthardt, who is the president of Simpatico Systems, which is a phenomenal MSP in the US here as well, and has had a tremendous amount of success and experience in both the AI and automation space. So before we kick this thing off fully, I wanted to just do a little bit of household stuff. If you can't hear us for any reason, which means you probably can't hear what I'm saying right now, check your speakers and try rejoining. We are recording this, so if you have any issues, if you have to drop early, anything like that, not a problem at all. We got you. We'll also send the recording in the next few business days following this. And then this is meant to be really an open dialogue conversation with these great speakers here. So any questions you have, drop them in the chat. We'd love to make sure that we answer as many of them as we can. You guys ready? All right, cool. So I will stop sharing this and we'll have a real dialogue. So I'll kick this thing off with a question I've been thinking about. We know that our industry loves really exciting new terms and acronyms, which we've maybe overkilled at this point. And so I thought maybe a good place to start would be really just defining what AI and automation actually are. On the surface, these are often considered one and the same, but they are wildly different when you get into them. And so I thought maybe, Cory, I'd have you kick us off here first and help us define these a bit further and get us aligned around proper terminology as we start kind of like digging into this topic.
Absolutely. Yeah, AI, we hear thrown around in the industry all the time, like you're talking about. And AI is really teaching computers to think like humans. So, we're training them. We've got large language models. We're using them to generate content, to understand human sentiment, to try and really think essentially as much as we can like a human. Automation, on the other hand, has been around for a long time. We've had robotic process automation, task automation. We've had variants of that for about 20 years. For me, being able to marry those two things together, where you can have automation tasks and then use something intelligent like AI to interpret a task or to generate content or to understand what a user is really trying to accomplish, and then actually do the automation, that's really powerful. And that's really what attracted us to PIA, is being able to take that AI. We've built a lot of AI ourselves at Simpatico, and it's really tough to take that AI context and actually create something in the real world. That's what I feel like is really pretty special about this, is being able to take the AI, take the automation down to the endpoint or to cloud systems and integrate that. And there's, again, that huge distinction between the two. But I love that we're actually defining what those really are and not just grouping it all together as AI.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. And Aron, Ryan, please feel free to add in anything you want here. But one of the things that you just said, Cory, that I think is interesting is using it in the real world. Often, with really exciting new things going on in the world, AI specifically, we tend to be in the clouds a bit. So, Ryan, Aron, anything you want to add to that? But I think that might be a great direction to kind of take this thing as well.
Yeah, I would just.
Yeah,
Sorry, Aron, go ahead.
I was going to say, in terms of the definition of AI as well, I think that there's a lot of information out there, and a lot of development in this space. There's capabilities that are available today. There's capabilities that are evolving right now and becoming available. So I think that the different aspects or flavors of AI, in terms of whether you're generating content with AI, whether you're predicting something, forecasting, whether you're reasoning with AI. I think it's all of those things together. But of course, as Cory put it, I think we are looking at things like LLMs and getting computers to think like humans, and that can come in many different forms and many different flavors. So definitely a very broad definition and scope, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and Ryan, you were about to say something as well.
Well, I just would say that my own experience in this is that, all right, we're talking about the MSP of the future, which we all need to have a good model and vision of what our industry and companies will look like in a few years, so we can make wise decisions today and prepare for that future. And I find that automation itself is hard enough to rigorously think about the way that it shifts teams. It's kind of like when RMM was first introduced. It didn't just do what we were doing easier, but it fundamentally shifted service teams. It changed the kind of text that we might use to deliver service. It actually shifted the way that we priced and packaged services when RMM was first introduced decades ago. And automation I see in a similar way, like it creates new opportunities. And if you just sort of say, all right, I can automate these tasks, then automate more and more, and you follow that out, we start to get some phase shifts in service delivery just from that. But then AI is this whole other thing altogether. I mean, it's still so alien and novel that it's very, very difficult to keep track of the way that this is changing the predictions within AI, and then overlay that into our prediction models of where this is going to go. And putting these two together, well, we've got like 50 minutes and we'll get it all solved, and it'll be done.
That's pretty
Easy.
accurate. So I'll throw this one to you, Aron, but I'm curious, how do you think MSP should be really looking at, how they're evaluating the highest and best use capabilities for their organization, right? As we look at like the future of MSPs, whether it's AI or automation, Ryan, I think, hit on that quite well, that this is probably the biggest moment since the introduction of RMM, right? Many years ago. It doesn't mean there haven't been tons of evolutionary changes in the MSP world, but this is wildly transforming how MSPs should look at things. So I'm curious, how do you think MSPs should be evaluating the direction of tools and technology?
Yeah, so certainly the more hands-on experience people are going to get with the tools and the products that are out there, the better MSPs will be in a position to make their own decisions. If you're watching this webinar, you're probably already thinking about this, and so you're at least going in the right direction. I think that people who aren't thinking about AI and automation in their business and how that can impact and improve the service offering that they have as an MSP, if you're burying your head in the sand, I think you're probably going to get left behind. And that's one of the things that is so difficult, especially for an MSP, is that you need to be up to date and current with the technology as it changes, shifts, and evolves. It's a constant learning process, and obviously, MSPs wake up in the morning and people get out of bed and look forward to this stuff, I think. But you're at the forefront of technology. Your clients are looking to you and asking you about AI, right? So for your own benefit of being in that position where you can have those conversations with your clients, and also where you can take advantage of the best and latest technology. It's a time investment, effectively, in really doing that research and playing with the technology that's out there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Ryan, anything you want to add to that, perhaps?
Yeah, I'm curious how you would all respond to this, but I see RPA as somewhat analogous to RMM. Like, I think to be an MSP at all today, much less in the next few years, you have to have RPA, and you have to have a strong automation flywheel that's building new automations, that's taking more and more processes to just go from manual to automated. Because if you just run that out a few years, the companies that are doing that versus the one that's don't, you get a huge difference. And I think we saw a similar kind of shift. I mean, I started an MSP in a two-door Ford Explorer with a bucket of parts in the trunk, like many of us. And when RMM came in, it was wildly different. And we, for years, were just taking clients from everybody who was still in a break fix model, right? And I think RPA, it's pretty analogous in interesting ways. But I see AI as analogous to nothing. Like, there's nothing that we've ever done before or had seen a technology wave, and that anything that we actually think of it as analogous for frames it in ways that could be unhelpful, because we could have assumptions in our framing that actually are not true to how novel and how spiky the capabilities of AI are. And so that's how I frame this, and I'm curious what comes up for the rest of you when you hear me say that.
Cory, you want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's some really fun things that are coming out in AI, and I think Ryan's 100% right. There are a lot of very novel approaches to this. We work with our customers all the time to try and figure out where is that line. At the end of the day, we're still a service industry, and we have to be able to engage and work with customers where they are. There is some apprehension and a little bit of fear from customers when they hear AI. What does that really mean for my data? How are you going to integrate things into my system? How are you going to touch these things without exfiltrating information that's important to me? And that's where I think you have to be really careful and very clear in the communication with your customers. How are we actually going to do these things? How are we going to add automation, add capabilities into your systems without really impacting it in an adverse way? So when we're talking about evaluating new tools and trying to find the value and looking at the future of MSP, we have to really factor a lot of those things in as part of that discussion. And when we're working with customers, there's new technologies like voice interaction with AI. Some of the new omni-channel AI models that are out there are really exciting because you can process in text, you can do video and pictures, you can do audio all at the same time. That's awesome, and it's really fun to play with as an MSP. But at the same time, there's got to be a line between how much is too much, too fast for customers, and where are we really interacting in a way that's meaningful for them. So when we're looking at this and evaluating, again, there are some really cutting edge tool sets that I think could make a huge difference from an efficiency perspective or trying to drive better ROI as a business. But we're held back by what is the adoption rate and how can we really get this into the hands of customers in a meaningful way. And that's where some of those things, even though there's some really neat technology, it's not really applicable within the business model for an MSP yet. Doesn't mean that we won't get there. And I think looking at over the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see better adoption from end users in that. But when we talk about things like RPA, that's really kind of that sweet spot for most MSPs. A lot of that is behind the scenes. We're not directly exposing that to customers other than maybe using some smart forms. So it's easier engagement, faster results for them. But the two metrics that we use when we're evaluating all of the AI systems or any kind of RPA is it going to help us drive more consistent results for our customers? And is it going to get to a result faster? Those are the two just big picture items that we discuss all of the time. Whatever the technology is, if it's not going to help us add consistency or get to a result faster, there's really not a great ROI discussion to start from there.
I think that's a great couple key metrics to use to really evaluate it, is it worth going down this path or not in looking at these different tools with so many AI assist, AI assist is now like the term thrown around on every commercial when I'm watching a golf tournament. And so as I think about that, it's that type of thing is what value does that really deliver? And I wanted to just circle back on something that you mentioned, Cory, in terms of the conversations with customers today. On the reverse side, you mentioned that they're asking more fear-invoked questions around data protection and sensitivity and things of that nature. What about on the other side? Are you seeing customers asking, what are you doing in the AI space? That's more of, we're looking to partner with an MSP that believes in the future and where this is going?
Absolutely. I love working with customers and kind of partnering on that level to talk about how we drive innovation and efficiencies internally with what Simpatico does, but in their businesses as well. Because of so much of the buzz around AI, everybody has heard it. Everybody wants to take advantage. And unfortunately, there aren't a lot of really practical ways to do that for businesses yet. AI is being built into everything, whether it's done really well or very poorly. Everybody's using the buzzword for AI. It seems like it's in everybody's marketing at this point. But really being able to take advantage of that is tough. And so finding an MSP that can help find the right solutions and demonstrate ROI for your business has been really difficult. We've actually had a lot of prospects recently that have engaged with Simpatico to talk about what we're doing and how we could extend that into their business. I think with some of the things, using PIA to be able to streamline some of their business processes are extremely impactful. We could always do things in a limited fashion. They submit a ticket. Like every MSP, you've got a tech either working on that ticket manually, or maybe you've got some automation you made internally. You could be using some other RPA. But to be able to automate that entire process with something like a smart form from PIA, where they can directly put in results and we're immediately actioning, not just on their servers, but in cloud applications, having meaningful business impact. When you're onboarding a user, it immediately happens. You're talking a few seconds and we're hitting everything with their on-prem, maybe it's Azure AD, could be going into Salesforce. I mean, we can provision the entire thing. And it's, again, that expedition of trying to get results to them as fast as we can, as consistently as we can with RPA and using some of those platforms. So it's really interesting to be able to cross that line and extend what we're doing into customer business and help them solve that problem.
Sure. Ryan, what are your thoughts there? I think that you're, being the Chief Innovation Officer for New Charter, where you're representing 30 plus and rapidly growing MSPs, the focus and strategy for your team is got to look wildly different than what I would have thought it would look like, 2 years ago, right? So I'm curious to get your thoughts on that in terms of what are you seeing customers asking about, both from a fear perspective and from an excitement perspective to that base MSPs that are under the New Charter umbrella.
Yeah, it's great. I think that small, mid-sized business leaders everywhere are looking for organizations that have actually done real world impact with AI. Like a lot of what we're working on at New Charter is the transformation primarily of service delivery using AI and automation. And we're fortunate because of the scale of New Charter that we can have the data science and the development and DevOps and like the full team to be able to actually bring the strategy and the tools and the platform to do that. And it's very, very exciting. And then I think clients want to hear about that kind of thing. They want to hear like, how is it actually transforming and doing? And then they want to be educated on how should I be approaching AI? I mean, I think we have a chance to help identify, we see a lot within our clients of when we help them identify business process challenges and we say, oh, AI is actually helpful here. It's a way of getting it in to say like, actually, you can use AI to solve this. And here's how Copilot could be helpful. if we can find the business process challenge, but there's also really big opportunity to just educate them on how to think about AI, how to understand the impacts that are available today, where this is likely going, what kind of prediction models we can use. Business leaders are hungry for that kind of prediction and real world impact. And there's a real opportunity for MSPs here where as long as I've been in the MSP industry, which is over 2 decades, we've always talked about taking a further step into businesses, right? To become more of a partner in the business. And it's really hard because the people in my experience who are great at partnering in the business conversations are the ones we make managers and directors because they understand the business enough that we need them. And so it's hard to do that. AI leadership is a space that I think the MSP industry can go into because it's wide open. And it's either going to be some combinations of MSPs, consultants in industry, and software providers, like the line of business software providers that I think move into that space. And it will be up to each MSP how much we can master this technology internally, broadcast those lessons, teach how to think and educate on this, and then actually bring real world implementations to clients, whether MSPs can actually make that mythical step further into clients and do it in the space of AI.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think, MSPs, well, it's wide open to that point. And I think MSPs, the value we bring besides making technology effortless as much as we can is when new things come into the world, we assess them and basically deliver people, processes, and technology with a real plan to customers. And there's so much excitement and the unknown. I mean, even in this conversation we're having, the topic of we don't really actually fully know what's going to happen here with the AI tidal wave that's coming through, but we know it's meaningful. So I think a reliance and an opportunity for MSPs to lean into that and put those people, processes, technology, strategy, and kind of like bundle this thing up for customers. I think there's a tremendous opportunity there.
Yeah, I agree.
Aron, it looked like you were about to say something, but I'm curious your thoughts there. Like, what do you think? Again, it's this big dark cloud or exciting cloud, depending on how you look at it. But how do you think AI is going to have the greatest actual impact to MSPs in the next 3 years?
Yeah, so I think that service delivery is a big one. Taking more of the stuff that is repeatable, is transactional, more of that noise and reduction of those things out of service delivery and out of the service desk. But it can be expanded to, and I'm expecting to see, projects and account management and other aspects of the MSP as it's connected up to, as these systems get more connected to the data of the MSP, and it's able to make intelligent insights into things within the MSP operation in a more broader sense. But certainly from an actual results perspective, we talk about AI and automation, but very specifically, for an MSP, it's the use of AI with automation. That's where I see the value and the real impact. You can use AI for a whole bunch of things, right? It's a lot broader than just using it to automate, but specifically AI with automation. And that's, I think Ryan was saying it really well in terms of, how you look at these products to evaluate for your MSP, what you want to try and use to automate your MSP or automate various aspects of your MSP. And it's what is it doing to solve a real challenge and solve real problems? And is it making an impact to your service delivery? Is it making things more efficient? Is it giving you better outcomes like CSAT outcomes? And those things are kind of our North Star. For PIA specifically, we started by building automation out. I kind of think of this as, if you think of a robot, right, arms and legs of a robot, and the head of the robot and the brain being AI, and the arms and legs are the automation. And both of those two things independently are valuable, but together extremely impactful, and they just have a multiplier effect when you combine them together. So we stay true to the actual solutions that actually improve service desk efficiency and service delivery. But when you add AI on top of that and you layer that on top, and that's a lot of the unknown bit. But of course, when you start layering that on top, that's where you can really drive a massive amount of evolution and growth within your service delivery. So we're betting huge on that. I think a lot of the industry is betting on that, not just because of it's the latest trend and things, but because if you look at the last 3 to 5 years of development of AI, it has shown enormous growth. And so as it gets cheaper, as it gets more capable, as it gets faster, then all of these things will make it more impactful for MSPs.
Yep, interesting. Anything, Cory or Ryan, either you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting when we're talking service delivery. I think the majority of the audience are MSPs, and when we typically think service delivery, we're thinking closing tickets. A request came in, how are we going to solve that problem? And I think that the agentic nature of AI makes that really possible with partnering with someone to do some of those things. I mean, with PIA, automating tasks and helping solve problems, building scenarios where it makes sense, that's certainly part of it. But at Simpatico, some of the things that we've really looked at is, how do we extend AI further into that service delivery? I think a lot of MSPs really struggle with things like sentiment analysis. When a ticket comes in, are we actually evaluating to see, is this customer upset? Are we looking for keywords or trends? Are we doing analysis on the tickets to have better recommendations for those customers? Do we identify where things may be going wrong, kind of predict, where there are trends that could be a detriment to their business? Those things are really tough to do manually, and AI is a great use case to do that. There are vendors out there that do a lot of those things, and that's some of the lessons I think that we've learned at Simpatico. We've been very fortunate to be of the size and scale where we can invest in building our own AI labs. We've got a lot of OpenAI instances. We've got a couple of different LLMs that we've played with. And to be honest, what we really found was that didn't generate a lot of ROI for us. Some of the best value we've gotten is partnering with vendors where they're focusing strategically on defined outcomes. PIA building and maintaining their own AI and looking specifically at automating tasks for businesses is significantly more effective from an ROI perspective than Simpatico going and building their own AI systems and trying to do a lot of that and maintain those models and update that training all the time. And so there's definitely a big trade-off between those. But for me, there are a ton of vendors out there, and it's tough to choose where you really feel like it's going to impact your service. You can automate everything and have really well-defined outcomes and scenarios for customers. But if you're not paying attention to the sentiment and understanding where some of their frustrations are, you may be churning customers at the same time and not really paying attention to that. So again, I do think that there are huge opportunities for AI with MSPs. But again, we're still a service delivery company. At the end of the day, we have to make sure that we're working with those customers and that we understand what's happening in their business models, what type of opinions they have, if we're really solving the problems that they care about, or if we're just focusing on something completely off base for them. So there's a lot for me that goes into that service delivery and tying AI in. And for kind of looking into the crystal ball and saying, what does it look like in 3 years? I think there are a lot of tools that MSPs are going to end up leveraging and should be using internally to evaluate their own business models and their own customer interactions, just as much as trying to push that into customer businesses and helping to make impacts for them.
Sure. Do you, and this question's for you, Ryan, but Cory just alluded to this a little bit. I don't see a world where a DevOps team internally at an MSP sets out to go build an RMM tool or rebuild something, right? BCDR tool or whatever the tool may be. And I look at the world of AI and automation similarly. I'm curious because Ryan, you said, and Cory had a comment like this as well, but New Charter's got teams and all this exciting, these exciting and highly skilled resources to be able to throw at these challenging topics. But how are you looking at that build versus buy and partner? And I won't just say buy because I don't think it's just a buying scenario, but would love your thoughts there.
It's a fantastic question and one we wrestle with a lot. So I think whenever there's a situation where there's clearly an established platform, we want to partner and buy with that. So for instance, happy PIA clients because you have built a great automation platform that we can use that's got beautiful, flexible architecture that can do automation in lots of different ways. You've got pre-canned automations, and then we can use this to use your agent to do other work for us. Like, it's great. That's clearly a category that has mature, developed leaders. And then PIA, of course, also does some AI work, but the entire question of how will AI impact and change MSP service delivery is a very open question. And I think it's not just that there isn't a platform that exists to bring AI actually into the processes effectively. I'm not just talking about like, how do I use chat in order to partner with an AI model to do my job better, but how does AI show up from the bottom up within the business and actually start to shift and change and create new opportunities? That, I think, is the greatest threat and opportunity facing MSPs today. There's not only not a platform for that, there's not an answer for that, there's not a great prediction model. And so a lot of what we build is so that we can build that prediction model and so that we can get the benefits early, and at New Charter scale that works. How do we then share those lessons? How do we share those lessons with vendors so they build the things that we want for the long term? But then how do we lead and understand as best we can where this is going to go? Because we are living through a deep level of uncertainty in our industry. If you look at all of the headlines about automated developers, about Facebook's claims, about Anthropic's, that like this is the drive, the push, right, is to have automated development. You're seeing already that developers can vibe code and create things in fractions of the time they used to be able to. It's tremendously powerful. Everything we do at MSP is one step over from developers. So here's all the focus on development. We're just one step over because you can script everything that we do, and there's an API for everything. And so if there's this much, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars of investment into developing these models, with one of the primary first use cases being powerful development, because that's the people who are developing this, right? They're developers. They want it to work for them. We are adjacent to that. So we're one of the next industries to get hit by that tidal wave. I don't feel like this is the kind of threat or opportunity that is the time to just sort of lay back and say, you know what, we'll all figure this out. The consultants will tell us what to do. The vendors will. I think this is a time to get forward with whatever level of resources we have. If it's a 5-person MSP, stay up late and dive in. If it's a 50-person, dedicated person into realistic experiments, MVPs, working with these models, read the co-intelligence book, like find ways to transform the culture towards getting as close to these models, as close to the fire as possible, for the sake of predictions and getting those opportunities. At New Charter scale, it just looks different because our proportion of those resources gets to be bigger and more deliberate, and that's just a function of scale.
Sure, sure. Aron, it looked like you were smirking at something that Ryan said. Do you want to add to that?
Or challenge?
Yeah,
I welcome
Or
challenge.
challenge. I mean, we actually had this vision, and still have this vision with PIA to be, and I talked about this robot with arms and legs and a head, right? So we had this vision with PIA to be both this AI platform and automation platform for MSPs, specifically within, or automating an MSP, right? But specifically around that application of AI to automation. And so effectively, having this agentic AI orchestrating service delivery using a platform that it could actually harness the full power of automation within the MSP. Yeah. And that vision is still true today, and we have aspects of that in our platform in terms of AI and agentic AI, and you've got triage and auto start and things like that we were just releasing at the end of last year, right? So that sort of capability is growing in the platform. But at the time that we actually started building, and the reason I'm smirking is because we had this vision, and this was 5, 6, 7 years almost ago now, but the AI was not available, right? And we actually built our first machine learning model, proprietary machine learning, to classify tickets, because we knew that we needed to analyze service delivery, as things were happening on the service desk. And the biggest way to do that is to analyze tickets coming through to your service desk. So I think that's something that, I won't necessarily challenge you on the statement that we're not an AI platform, because I will say that we aren't broadly an AI platform for MSPs to build their own custom prompting or their own agents or their own models, but we are an AI platform in the sense of harnessing the full power of automation for service delivery, and that's the distinction that I wanted to kind of make there.
Yeah, that's great, Aaron. I think it'll be really interesting to see how much, because PIA, obviously, they're like built automations that are tested and precise. So then we can do things in repeatable ways with a great deal of precision. And then you have AI where there's very low precision, but there's the ability to handle all kinds of variables, the long tail of requests that's difficult to build manual processes for. How those two things marry is going to be fascinating over the next couple of years. How we can take the ability to handle complexity at scale that LLMs represent and the precision of repeatable workflows that RPA represents, and all of the opportunities and what ends up sort of shaking out in that space. It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, 100%.
So I want to shift this to an interesting topic, but as this is a situation that all MSPs are going to be faced with. You have a service desk with several high-skilled folks, and we are now bringing in tools to, how I like to look at it, is better support them in being successful, often taking maybe away some of the routine, frankly, just not exciting level 1 entry-level requests that come in. But I'm curious to hear, and I'll throw this to you first, Cory. How have you dealt with adoption in service desk as it relates to new tools and capabilities that are coming out? And I'll preface it with saying one thing real quick, which is I think there's this concept that we're all going to have these AI virtual live agents, right, that do anything and everything, and you jump on a webinar or they remote into your computer and you're looking at a person that's not a person, right? It's an AI generated image. We're not there yet, right? And I think there's a lot of fear around that. But I'm curious, from an adoption perspective, how have you all, Cory, or your organization, how have you looked at adopting that and making sure that you have the right champions and support behind it?
Yeah, I mean, I would love if we got to that point. I think we're still a long way from that. And for us, one of the things that's been kind of a persistent thing at Simpatico is that we are trying to push the boundaries of what we're capable of and what the technology is. So our techs are used to seeing changes in systems and processes, and we're constantly trying to dial that in and get better. So change is kind of a known quantity at Simpatico. When it comes to adoption and really rolling out PIA with our technicians, it's actually been really pretty easy to do. There's demonstrated ROI for those guys. They're getting their time back. When a ticket pops up and the PIA agent says, I can help with this. Here's the issue. Here's what the user put in. You click a couple boxes and hit go. It's really easy for them to see the value in that, and they can see the output running in the ticket. They know this process is being done. Here's everything that's running for them. So that it's really easy to demonstrate those wins to them. A lot of times it's tough for them to have that visibility and to understand if it's really something that's going to save them time, if it's better for them or not. But that makes it really easy. The other part of that is the adoption board in PIA. We can actually see which techs are using the system. How many times have they run different scenarios, or how many executions do we have per tech, per customer? Are we really integrating this as far as we could or we should for every one of these environments? So it makes it easy for us to go in and look at, if we've got all these technicians averaging 30 to 40 scenarios that they're running a day, but we've got 2 techs that aren't running any, or maybe 2 or 3. We can go back and coach them and figure out what's going on. Is it a comprehension issue? Is it some kind of distrust of the system? What's really going on with it? So from an adoption perspective, it's a lot easier for us to be able to roll that out with the way that it's structured right now for PIA.
Sure. Ryan, what are you seeing in terms of that same question, right? But how service desk techs are looking at and perceiving new tools like this?
Yeah, I think you have some who are in this industry because they love innovation and new technology and they immediately adapt to it. And you have some who are really afraid of what this is going to do to their jobs. And so I think we are entering a new era of what it means to be a technology professional, and these are the new tools that we have to master. It's like if you're in infantry in the military and somebody else shows up with a mech suit. Well, you can either get in a mech suit and learn how to operate it, or you can get mowed over by the mech suits. And I can't stop there being mech suits in the world. Like, they're here, so I want to give my team the best mech suits, the best training, and the best resources for that, and then point us at opportunities to continue to transform our clients so that there are more and more job opportunities, so that we have that career growth grow. And I will say all of that while also being really frank that, like, you alluded to the AI employee that's going to show up and like, I don't know whether that's going to happen. I've been shocked at the development of the last few years. We've all been tracking AI for a long time. Nobody predicted that in a 2-year span, we would see the kind of resources, money, intelligence pouring into this. This isn't just about these AI models. It's about the intelligence structure that's generating them, right? The businesses and their capital and the entire ecosystem. It is impossible in my world to know where it's going to go or how fast. And so we may have that happen in a few years. And that's going to be really difficult for all of us. I just want to be at the forefront of it so that I have as much agency as possible. And I want to encourage the team that everyone who comes with me to the forefront, we will have the most agency. We'll be able to care for the most people if we move early, because I don't know what's coming. I'm really uncomfortable making predictions about these AI models. I can predict really pretty accurately, I think. Not accurately. I can predict with some level of confidence, humble confidence, the next few years based on the models of where we have today. But where these models are going to be in 3 years, nobody can predict that well right now. And so some level of epistemic humility here is the stance, I think. And then can we build our organization so that we're happy when they get smarter? Can we encourage our techs and engineers to adopt them in ways that when the models have new capabilities, it's not, oh no, it's look at all that I can do now. Hey, look, instead of hiring, we can take on 10 more clients without hiring any people, and to put it towards that opportunity space where we're celebrating when the models get smarter. That's, I think, the cultural challenge facing all of us.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think there's a bit of I'm stealing this from a colleague of Aron and I's, but two speed economy sort of going on. Of there are certain things moving wildly fast, but there's also the speed at which the business can sustain and can support and sort of bridge that gap. And I think there's sort of room to run both of those together. And I'm curious, Aron, as I think about like PIA specifically, selfishly, you very purposely had our team build out a mechanism to actually show service desk agents every step that the system was going through in assessing a problem. And I'd love to hear from you, like, why that was the approach. When I think about, you could just fully automate this behind the scenes and never engage with the service desk tech in theory, but very purposely this decision was made. And I'd love to hear why that was the decision that was made.
Yeah. So going to the point of why we have this vision of AI and automation, and where that kind of came from, and what that it really is that automation on its own obviously it's a tool. It requires people to use it. What we wanted to do was have automation automatically running, and to do that you need some sort of intelligence as a service to reason about and analyze information to then determine what needs to run and what kind of automation it needs to apply, and even then doing the steps of the automation. And all of those things look like magic. When it's all working, it just looks like magic. Like tickets come into its ticketing system, it fills out a bunch of fields on it. It says what the ticket is. It goes through the automation process, adds time, closes the ticket. Everything looks like magic. And that we identified really early on could be very scary as well, especially if something goes wrong. There's a big trust factor here for any new technology around automation and AI, where you have to win over people with it. They have to be able to trust it. And you better believe if something happens that they're not sure about, or what happened here, they need to be able to question it. So we have two primary principles we use for this. One is control. The MSP should be in control. They should be able to make changes to configuration, and they should be able to influence what's happening around the reasoning logic, the decision-making logic, and the automations themselves. And the second one is, control and visibility. So the second one is visibility. Everything that this system does, or any system around, and this is a big one I tell people all the time, MSP say, what should I look for? Look for automation and AI, look for control and visibility. If you have control over what it's doing and visibility into how it's making the decisions and why it did something, and you can go back and actually look at that, that's really important. Like, for example, we're just building at the moment prioritization AI to help prioritize tickets, right? And we've got that as part of triage. We'll be going to output, for example, the reasoning. So, using the reasoning logic of an LLM, why did it think that it was this priority? It's this priority because I think it's, this priority because it's this person who logged the ticket and they're having this problem. Therefore, it's a priority one because it's preventing them from being able to work. And so you can actually output reasoning in the system to make sure that when people go, why did the thing set it to this priority? I can look at it and I can read a reason why. And then I have control to go and influence that in the future so that it can do it a different way. So those two things are important.
Sure. Cool. That's helpful. And Cory, were you about to add something to that?
No, I was just going to say that I can absolutely confirm that with our technicians, when they can look at the ticket and they can see everything that's happening, why it's running, what PowerShell scripts it's running in the background, that's really why they're buying into it, because they're seeing all the things that's happening behind the scenes, the tasks that they would normally be doing, they're seeing running in the automation, so they know it's actually happening. One of the things that's really tough for us is if we put a system in and the system says that it did something, but it didn't really, and your techs are constantly having to go check, did this actually happen? Did this automation really run? Did this script really complete the way it's supposed to? They're spending more time second guessing what's happening in the automation than actually going and doing it themselves. And that's where we really have seen struggles with adoption in the past with other tool sets. But with PIA in the ticket, being able to see every single task, what the task was, if it completed, and the output from that has made it a lot easier for them to trust that process.
Yeah. You said something that makes me laugh about a conversation Aron and I had recently, and Ryan brought it up briefly around vibe coding, and that you now have developers, right, spending all day, every day using some AI tool like ChatGPT to write code because they don't know how to write code, and just spending the same cycles of time. They just happen to not know how to write code. They're just throwing ideas at this board and hoping something finally sticks and works properly. So it reminds me a lot of what you just said.
Yeah. Coding by prompting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do have a couple questions that came through the chat, so I want to hit on those. And so let me pull those up real quick, and we'll take the first one that came in, which is the term AI agents is everywhere right now. To me, it's not just a buzzword. It's something that requires real skill to implement and integrate into businesses effectively, and it's actually happening in the near future. Do you see MSPs evolving into AI agent implementers or strategists in addition to service providers? And if so, does that mean we need to raise the bar on the skill sets we're hiring for in the MSP space?
I would say, in short, yes. And I do think it's something that you should be looking for. I've actually had a couple conversations with some different marketplace providers. I spoke with Pax8 fairly recently. They're actually looking at creating a marketplace for agents. I think that you've heard people say agentic all the time. That really just means that you are consuming AI through agents. We're creating agents that are purpose built for specific tasks. I think, especially when you get to smaller MSPs that don't have development internally, they don't have the resources to go and build a lot of these agents themselves. Having a marketplace where they can go find a specific agent to hit an outcome that they need for one of their customers is going to be paramount to their success in the future. If you've got maybe it's a legal client and they need the ability to synthesize large sets of information and really distill down key takeaways, you could go build that yourself and help implement that for them. But if you can find an agent that you can plug into Copilot that does all of that for them, and you're just kind of tweaking a few things here or there, you can still deliver the result to the customer that you need and consume it in a way where you don't have to have all the development resources internally. So I'm really interested in what that marketplace looks like in the future and the way that we're going to be able to consume that, because that's the only way I feel like we really level the playing field for some of the small and medium-sized MSPs to be able to actually provide those services. But I do absolutely believe that that has to be part of the answer for MSP services in the future. If we continue down the road for automation, there are going to be very few MSPs that are going to be able to compete without a lot of vendor support. I think PIA is doing a great job of helping extend that into all of the MSP sizes to add that automation capability. But MSPs are largely delivering the same things all the time. We talk a lot about differentiation and how do you really solve problems for businesses. I think being able to find a way to solve those business processes, extend AI into that world with some of those agents is a big part of what MSP evolution looks like for me over the next couple of years.
Yeah, that makes sense. Ryan, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to start with MSPs. I'm regularly feeling like I want to shake people and be like, you've got to be using AI more. Whether you like it or not, it is actually far better and more capable than you realize. It is far more seismic, and we have to learn how to use it effectively today and integrate this into our businesses. Start with automation and direct playing with these models, and we've got to invest the time, and then we can share that with our clients. I think when it comes to hiring, I want to make two observations. One is we always want people who are innovative, good people who are helping to build solutions, right? And not just following the bouncing ball. And so if we can hire more of those, they will be more effective in the future. But I think broadly, if we think out that 3-year time frame, we all live in a knowledge economy, all right? The MSP is squarely in a knowledge economy. The entire knowledge economy runs on the underlying assumption that knowledge is scarce and that we should pay good money for access to specific types of knowledge. That entire knowledge economy is being shaken and disrupted because knowledge is becoming essentially free, including specialized and high power. Now we can all say, oh, well, I asked it this thing and it gave me a poor answer. Well, did you learn to really prompt? Did you spend hours? Did you teach it? Did you treat it the way that you would a day one intern and actually teach it and work with it and feed it data? Because it actually, today's models are far more powerful than most of us realize when you do advanced prompting or you integrate them into business processes, feeding them proper data and dictating what kind of outputs you want. But beyond that, we also realize that they're getting smarter and more intelligent, which means the knowledge economy is changing. If knowledge is becoming cheap and plentiful, and the power to take agency, going to what you were saying, Aron, of like PIA being a platform of agency for this knowledge, if that's becoming essentially free or very inexpensive as well, well, what's left? Well, what I would propose is left is wisdom. It's like all the things that distinctly make us human, which is that we are bodies who care, who have goals and an orientation towards a meaningful and beautiful life, who can care about people and navigate like novel complexity in the real world. And if we orient ourselves towards this bigger picture and this wisdom and build teams that are oriented towards those fundamental large context, like wise principles, and then we expect that knowledge and power is going to get cheaper and more plentiful in the middle, that's the combination that I think will end up being really powerful and effective in the future.
I don't think I could have said that better. That was really, really powerful. And I agree. It reminds me of when I go and use ChatGPT to help me write an email, and I look at this email and I'm like, it's just missing the authenticity and the wisdom of like my real life experience. And I end up sort of rewriting the whole thing, right? It gave me a framework, and now I'm like reworking this whole thing because of, to your point, the wisdom that people bring to this. Do you
You're
look
just going to
at,
change your prompt, David,
I know.
write it in the words of David Schwartz from PIA. There you go.
There we go. I need to work on that. So we only
if
have
I can,
yeah, go
not
ahead,
to be
Ryan.
pedantic, but like it is both. It can be taught better, but there is something of the right time in the right place of what's relevant. The AI models rely on our determination of what's relevant. There's no way to hard code relevance. That's something that's a human function, at least for now, at least for a while that we can see.
Yeah, that's great. So we got to wrap this up. This has been an awesome conversation. I appreciate it. I wanted to just sort of open this up to kind of any final thoughts. There's about 50 more questions, maybe a few hours of conversation I'd like to keep having. We obviously don't have the time for that. We didn't even get to all the questions that were asked in the Q&A section. But Cory, I'll start with you. Any final thoughts around this topic of the MSP of the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think that actionable things you should take away from this are that there are a lot of AI systems out there. There's a lot of capability for MSPs, but you absolutely should be looking at and evaluating what AI looks like for your business, for your customers. Play with those systems. And more than anything, AI will only really be effective if you have good data, good governance. You have to have the right information in your business, in your customers' businesses, if you're trying to extend to them, to be able to build AI systems, to train, to understand what you really need it to do. If you don't have well-defined policies, procedures, guidelines for your own MSP, being able to extend AI into your business in a meaningful way is going to be very difficult. So there's a level of maturity that I think a lot of MSPs really need to start evaluating and understanding to be able to take advantage of these systems as they come out.
Yeah, that's great. Ryan, any final thoughts you have?
Yeah, I would say, the MSP in 3 years, I want to underline that despite investing tremendously in this, my career, the best of my intellect, and in a tremendous team, I don't know what the future looks like in 3 years because there's so much that's changing. But I do believe that there are positions we can take today about how we work with this technology and how we build towards becoming more and more automated and AI integrated. And that in 3 years, that it's pretty easy to see some lines of the future MSP will have a lot of what we're doing will just be automated, and it will be close to the client in a way that no human needs to touch it, and that all of the humans will be augmented with AI, surrounded with tools within their core stack of PSA, RMM, interfacing with their RPA that actually take action on that. And that we're going to see a lot more flexibility and power in each of the roles, and that will start to change the kinds of roles and the kinds of teams as we deliver a service that's fundamentally closer to the client, more flexible, highly automated, and really data driven. And that in 3 years, we're going to see the first of those next generation MSPs and everyone else beginning to move that way if they haven't already.
Yeah, I like that. You always do a great job, Ryan, of painting this amazing vision, and at the same time also saying, and I have no idea where we're going, but I'm so bought into the vision. Aron, any last final thoughts you have?
Yeah, I think what you were saying before, David, about prompting AI and getting it to write emails, right? AI is so interesting because there's a capability there that's really only limited by the questions that we ask it. And I think that's the interesting thing for me, is that I think we have this answer and this capability, but we haven't worked out all the questions we can ask it. And the capability is also, the goalposts are moving on that because it's getting better. Mm-hmm. So those two things to me make it extremely interesting and extremely compelling for people to take advantage of the opportunity that's available. So that's effectively where I think that if people are motivated, and we talked about looking at people and who the right people are in your MSP, the people who are really good at prompting AI and really good at asking the questions and really motivated to use that new technology, they're the ones who are going to adapt really well. And I think if you've got some of that, then you will do well.
Perfect. I love it. Well, we are out of time. I appreciate the three of you joining me and having such a great conversation. And to everybody who attended, I appreciate it. We're excited. You'll get a recording of this sent to you over the next several business days. And yeah, that's all we got for today. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.